Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. So it's good from Rob's point of view, having mentioned me and talking about career development, that I'm still here at Ticketmaster. I just wanted to see a little bit about you guys and girls. So if you put your hands up, if you are sort of a hands-on techie, sort of developing software, yes, a good number. And if you're sort of more on the sort of product PMO side, anymore. And then there's a few people who are still eating, so that's fine. Good. Okay. So a bit about myself. So I have been in tech for quite a few years. First had an 8-bit machine at the age of 8 and started programming because that was the only thing you could do with it. And went to work for IBM for a few years as a developer. And then when Agile sort of kicked in, when my first daughter was born, so that's about 7 or 8 years ago, that's the kind of the life of Agile lives in the age of my daughter. So that's quite a useful reference for me because now it's like she's going on 8. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm going to hand over to John.
And yeah, hi, I'm John. I'm the guy that told you the health and safety, boring stuff. I'm head of PMO and project management here at Ticketmaster, and I know that means some of you are thinking, why is there a project PMO guy standing up at an Agile thing? We don't need them, get them out of here. And the reason's really simple. I've got the keys for the bar. That's why I'm here. No, on a serious note, I've been... I'll tell you more about my vision of PMO and what project management is about and where it does fit into Agile and business agility. But I've been delivering stuff for people in places for a lot of years. In finance sector at Barclays, IT companies like Dell, Getronics, Computer Center, in Bangalore here, KL. I have internationally spoken as well, so it's nice to have a fellow international speaker here. Most recently I was out in San Diego with PMI, trying to teach PMO people in the US about Agile, which involved 120 people in a room and a ridiculous amount of ping pong balls. That was fun. I still wake up traumatized about it. But anyway, that's me, and I'll tell you a bit more about what I do as we progress.
Yeah, I think you'll find I have the keys to the bar.
Courses.
So, do you want them? Let's catch. Right. So we're going to talk about innovation. For those of you who have short attention spans, this is our talk in one slide. So you can take a picture of that and then go to sleep if you had a long day. Yeah, going to talk about a few things. So the idea that we're all problem solvers. There was something I saw on the BBC recently, it was a few months ago, and they were interviewing some girls at school talking about the problem of trying to engage them with STEM subjects. And this one girl piped up and said, "Why can't we just rebrand engineering as problem solving? Because that would probably, fix it for all of us. Because we're happy to solve problems, but engineering has this kind of, image associated with it that we don't like. So, fair enough. Expand your domain. So, one of the things I was chatting to with John just before we started was, there's something of a mindset that you can get into as a developer, and I know this myself, where you're quite happy in your own little world, and you'll chuck stuff over the fence, and you don't really care about what happens to it after you've solved the problem, you're done with it, and how that mentality can kind of make or break a team, and then something around picking teams that I'll go into later. So, I'll cover your bits.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about how we PMO it. As apparently the slide says, how we PMO things, which I will tell you about. I'm going to tell you, so I think anyone who works in Agile will be familiar with the concept of thin slices of things. I want to share a story with you about that hopefully you can take away and share with people who are not technical and help them understand how thin slices work across the business with a nice non-technical, non-Agile anecdote for you. And then finally, I want to talk about the importance of celebrating absolutely everything you do. Successes, failures, mediocre bits in the middle. Everything. Sweet.
So who is Ticketmaster? Hands up if you've used the Ticketmaster website to go to an event. Okay, great. And hopefully you all had a great time on that website because it's such a good experience, and we love going to events. And so one of the problems that we have obviously is trying to get millions of fans into events where there aren't millions of tickets available. But we are a global brand leader. We have 100 offices around the world, and we have some very interesting tech challenges that go along with that. As you can imagine, we've been around for 40 years. So we were an original tech innovator in the space. That's from the US where we started. That's how we kind of, won our sort of mandate to kind of do ticketing, because we were the best at it from the tech platform point of view. We were the first to do ticketing online, and now we have people like Amazon, trying to invade our space. So that's also fun.
And this is about innovation. So I just wanted to explain, everyone says, oh, innovation and we're innovative. I just want to share what innovation really means for me from my side of things. So firstly, I genuinely feel that I work for a great company, and we are a great company, which is always good when you work somewhere, to feel that. And because we're a great company, or maybe because we're driving it, but because we're a great company, we tend to attract great talent. So great people want to work here, they've heard of the company, they'd like to come and work with us. But top talent need to be kept interested, retained, excited. They need that reason to get up in the morning and come to work and stretch themselves and challenge themselves and work on audacious, big, exciting things. So in order to keep that top talent, we need to innovate and grow and keep those people energized. And that combination of top talent and innovation means we end up with great products, which therefore means people think we're a great company. And I've kind of got this circle thing going at the moment. And why innovation is so important? Because the moment we stop innovating, the top talent gets bored and leaves. I no longer have great products. People don't think we're a great company. And the whole kind of circle thing grinds to a halt and falls apart. So innovation for me is not just about doing the sexy things. It's much wider than that. It's about retaining, bringing in the best talent that we have to make our products great and make us a great company, which is kind of a fairly blatant way of saying, hi, come work for us, we're awesome.
Yeah, which we are, of course. Okay, hands up if you recognize this film. Want to shout it out what it is? Apollo 13, yeah. So when we're talking about we're all problem solvers, so there's a great point in here when things go wrong, and there's that famous line that we all know about Houston and we have a problem. And I love this line in here because the mission control guy, played by Ed Harris, he's like, well, you've got to try and fit a round peg into a square hole, or the other way around. In any case, it's like you guys have to come up with a problem, but it's not just down to the techies to fix it. It's like that's going to save people's lives. Now, our business doesn't save people's lives, but we're looking at driving a bottom line, and it's kind of really important that we connect engineering into that, because if the engineers are just siloed off, doing their thing, and they're divorced, and it's amazing the number of talks I listen to, because I listened to the one that was at River Island a couple of weeks ago, and it happens all over the place, because we techies, we talk about the business. Like the business is some kind of monster sat in some downstairs basement, and it's like, no, they're people doing marketing and sales, and like bringing stuff into the bottom line. These are important functions, and like us, they are also problem solving, just in different domains. So it's not exactly what we do, but it's still looking at huge kind of amounts of data and trying to figure out what's going on and how best to kind of use that information. So part of this is how do we bring these together? And the unique problem for us at Ticketmaster really is how do we get tickets to fans? So for example, when Adele went on sale last year and we had 10 million people queuing up to buy 400,000 tickets, that's roughly the equivalent of me, if all of you wanted to go to Adele, then I would have about 3 or 4 tickets that I could give out. So you're saying, well, who do I give them to? And so it's a precious commodity, and we have to try to figure out ways of getting that commodity to the people, not just who have the biggest server farms in Eastern Europe who can hack in and buy those tickets with bots faster than you can as a consumer, but how do we beat that? So one of the things we came up with this year, hands up if you've heard of this, Verified Fan. Okay, yeah, that's one hand, good. Thank you. So to be fair, this has been launched in the US with a few acts like Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift, and it hasn't really come over here yet, but we're looking at doing it some point this year. Bonus points if you can recognize the band in the video. So the idea is that fans register for a pre-sale, so put some information in about who you are, who your social profiles are. We will then analyze that data and provide you with a unique code. So we do a bunch of things like looking through your social media history, like do you have links in with that particular artist, and then we'll give you a code. then you can use that code to, when the pre-sale goes, you can then type that code in and you get into the pre-sale. So the initial results are really good. We had like 95% of the tickets getting to fans. So that's kind of a really good thing. Someone just posted up today like some Medium post of someone who's like basically hacked the whole thing and described exactly like how to hack it. So, you know, that's always going to be the case, right? You're always going to have to figure out how you're going to get one step ahead. So, you know, that's the world we live in. But at least this is kind of having, you know, immediate results. So, you know, that's something that we've innovated.
So PMO stuff, who kind of rolls their eyes when people talk about PMO and project managers and that kind of stuff? Oh, loads of hands, marvellous. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you kind of what my vision is for PMO and project management. I was actually at a PMO conference earlier this year, and so a room full of PMO people, and I stood there and went, right, okay, quick question for you to start with. What would happen in your company if the PMO were to suddenly disappear? And there was a body language, there was an inward sort of bit of horror, a few arms crossed, and then one person, probably around the middle, just said, it would just be chaos, which was quite nice. I quite like that. But the harsh reality, as I shared with them, was actually stuff would still happen. Because the PMO could disappear, the project managers would disappear, and we'd still deliver product. Things would still get out for retail, things would still get out to stores. You've seen it with loads of companies where actually you can take out that layer of the business and everything still does work. So it's not entirely true that's the case, and yet there is definitely value there. And as I was exploring that idea, we basically came up with this idea, which was the reason for the PMO is to reduce the amount of energy required to make things happen. Has anyone got a chemistry background? Anyone do A-level chemistry? Yeah, GCSE? Turned up to a lesson once? Yeah, anyone remember catalysts? This is really what we're talking about here, talking about the idea of the PMO being a catalyst and reducing the energy to make things happen. The idea being, if we can look at the routes through the business that get things delivered and make those simpler, find simpler ways to cut across the silos, to bulldoze through the red tape and to make things happen. If we can make that faster and safer, we're reducing the effort required to get things done and make things happen. Now, it's not always seen that way. Sometimes people look and go, oh, John, I'm stuck. How do we get this done? And I'm quite good at bulldozing things when needed, paving the way, which works quite well. Other times people do have to stick to process and they go, well, I don't quite understand why I'm doing that. It's a waste of my time. And then you have to explain that actually a little bit of this stuff now is going to save you a whole load of time when you try to come to release to production and you find our data governance people won't let you because you're exposing customer data to people that are not very nice. So it's about reducing that energy all the way through the process and making it simpler. That's kind of what we're about here. That's what we talk about internally a lot. We openly challenge and encourage anyone who works here to come and see us and tell me that my processes are rubbish and tell me that they're slowing them down. Because do you know what? Sometimes that's great because they're right. And we put a process in 3 years ago, we've not gone back to it since, and now it's really outdated and now we've got a better way of doing that. Other times they're wrong, and I explain to them why that is and give them the big picture view and they get it and they go away actually understanding it, or even better, going away and going, I still think there's a better way. And they come back and prove me wrong a bit later on and we make things faster. So this really for me is what the PMOs should be about. So I'll leave that little seed with you, and those of you that do work with PMOs and project managements who you sometimes feel are a bit too governance-y, compliance-y, do go away and have this chat with them and share it with them, because this is what they should be about. Not me.
Okay, so talking about expanding your domain again, and I don't know why I thought about Shrek and the Onion, but the idea that, you know, we all have layers, so we're not all who we are. Right now I'm presenting to you my presenter face and my presenter body, but, you know, when I go back upstairs to my desk, I'm not like this. Thanks, John. So talked about expanding your domain. So anybody been using containers, Docker at all? Yeah, a bit of a mind shift from what you were doing before. AWS, yeah, so we're kind of all in with AWS. So I love reading these stories over the last sort of year or two about how, you know, all our jobs are going to be automated and people are really scared. I'm like, well, firstly, I'm in tech, so I'm fine. And secondly, if my job gets automated, surely that means I can spend more time on holiday. So I don't see what the problem is. But automating what you do, like, And there's a lot of frustration around with people using technology, often who are not in the tech part of the business, and they don't understand why things don't work easily. And I'll give you an example of this on this measurement side of things. So I've been doing an internal data platform project this year, and what I've found is that across the business, you've got these kind of monster Excel files that people have created because we use a whole bunch of tools with a whole bunch of data, and people need to suck that in somewhere, and the first thing they think is Excel. So they suck stuff into Excel, and then it's like, well, we have to report on this. So then they do all these kind of calculations and produce graphs and then spit it out. And every time I've got teams coming to me saying, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? I'm like, sure. We've got this tool that now automates all of this stuff. Really good dashboarding tool. I'm not going to give them any free PR though, but you can ask me afterwards. So it's been really good, but what people do is every time I say, oh, please send me your Excel file because then I can see the data structure, they always apologize. Always. Like, without fail, they say, I'm sorry it's in such a state. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's fine, it's fine. And they're like, this thing grew because I'd never planned for it to be like this, but it's just grown, and now I hate looking after it. And, so automate it. If you can automate stuff, automate your job and then do something more interesting. Surely that's the way we should be going. And the final point really is on the architecture side. So we did a study a couple of years ago on trying to measure technical debt in our organization. We have a whole bunch of software platforms. We did that with a model. The learning from that over the last couple of years is that the real killer is the architecture debt. So if you have a software platform, hands up if you have a reference architecture for that platform. Hands up if you know what a reference architecture is. Right, so a reference architecture is, if we built the thing today, what would we use and how would we build it? So what technology would we use? So if you then start to talk about legacy, right, that could be, you might think in your head a mainframe software, or you might think of a .NET platform that was built 10 years ago, right? So anything that's not up to date in terms of architecture, you could argue is legacy. And we see this happen not just with enterprises, but startups as well, right? You make shortcuts, you don't address the architectural issues. It's just like a house. Right, if you try and build an extension on top of a single floor extension, but then if the foundations have only been laid to support a single floor, what happens if you start building a second floor, right? And that's what happens with our software platforms. Like the techies often, it's like, no, we can do that. No, we can do that. And you end up with this huge mushroom thing that you can then no longer work with. And that's really stressful for everybody. So make sure you find out what a reference architecture is. Make sure that you have an architect in your platform who is keeping that up to date, and make sure that every iteration you look at your current architecture, look at your reference, and make sure that you're slowly over time moving towards that. Because otherwise, and if you can't articulate that problem to anybody else, then you're ultimately going to get stuck with a platform that you can no longer develop on. So that's the main learning that we've taken from this. So where do we innovate? Now, I'm going to talk about hackathons in a second, but often we just innovate around the tech side and maybe a bit on the UX. But there's this whole other area of the business which includes things like budgeting, right? Budgeting, I learnt in economics at school, was a terrible way of doing finance. And yet it's the kind of go-to method, right? So why don't we do some innovating on some of these other areas of the business that often block what we try to do? Yeah? Fair enough? So I've got a, John had this slide he's going to talk about next. I just liked the way that, do you see that? I just thought, oh, that's cool, right?
And yeah, just on that PMO one, talking about, just on the hackathon idea there, talking about doing it with the different areas of the business. We are actually doing a PMO hackathon here in October, getting a load of PMO people together to hack their reporting, their PPM systems and everything. So no idea how that's going to go, but it'll be fun.
Sexy.
Absolutely. Okay, so who can tell me what this is being built? Eiffel Tower. No. Not the Eiffel Tower. Absolutely wrong. This is London. This is North London. And basically what happened was I got the Eiffel Tower built in Paris. We kind of looked at it from London and went, that's nice. That looks like a big tourist puller. We want one of those. So we thought we'd build our own. And everything was private at that time. People kind of had their own land and they decided to build it. And they didn't have massive pockets to build things with, and they used a concept which should be very familiar to you. thin slices. And thin slices is something we do here. And the reason I'm bringing this in, and the reason that segues so seamlessly, not just because of the pyramid structure of it, is because thin slices aren't just about technology. There is no point in you delivering a very, very thin slice of an application if you haven't also delivered the very, very thin slice of marketing, the very, very thin slice of the supply chain, the very, very thin slice of HR and everything else that goes along with it. So these thin slices need to be really, really deep and not just technology based. And that's why I'm giving you a non-technology example. So what happened here was we decided we were going to do it. The guy didn't have that much money, and he thought, I know, let's take some thin slicey stuff. And he decided he would build level 1. You see tents on the top there. He would sell tickets, and he would let people climb up that far and see views across London. Not only that, he built out the area around this as well. It was in a big park. He had football fields. He had loads of sporting facilities, cricket. He had a boating lake where people could go rowing. And do you know what? After that first slice, so he delivered it early, rapidly, got it out there, and people said, yeah, that's great. We want a bit of that. And they all came along at the weekends. They started playing football. They started paying good money to play cricket, to use the boating lake, to go around the running track, and it was fantastic, and it was a big success. He got enough money in, ready to do phase 2. Except some of you more observant people may have noticed we haven't actually got an Eiffel Tower in London, and that's because it didn't actually go beyond slice 1. And I know what you're thinking, this is a rubbish story because it didn't actually work. This is a really good story, because actually what happened was, the reason it didn't go any further was actually because the foundations were rubbish and it started falling down. So that was the end of that. But when you start a project, you have this idea of what the value is going to be and why you should be doing this stuff. And what they found when they got something out there very quickly, a thin slice out there, releasing value, getting users to play around with it, what they found out was the thing that was making money, the thing that was dragging people in, was not going up the tower once, but it was using the football facilities, it was using the cricket ground, it was using the sports things. That was what was bringing people in. So that was left to rot. And they built up all the sports facilities. And they suddenly had a very, very big space with a lot of good sports facilities, which turned out to be the absolutely perfect location to put the Olympics and to build a national football stadium. And this is Wembley. In fact, when they built the new stadium that they've got now, when they were demolishing the old one underneath the football pitch, they found the remains of this that had been, they had to blow it up by dynamite at the time to knock the whole thing down properly, but they found the remains of it still underneath the pitch. So the reason I'm telling you that is not because I'm a history buff, it's to reinforce 2 things to you. 1, thin slices are kind of important. 2, they're about the whole business. It needs to be deep, the marketing, the sales and everything. And look at the end of that slice and look at the value, not from your basis of where you thought it was when a business case was done somewhere, but what the real value is and how people are interacting with it and using it, and then proceed from there. Over to you, I think. Or is it me? No, it is you. Good stuff.
So we've done some good, we've done a load of hackathons over the last, 6-7 years probably. And here's one that we did earlier with TfL. Maybe we could have hacked their sort of contracts division in the last week. But in any case, what we did was we spent a whole day with about 50 people all like hacking together on the API that Ticketmaster launched last year, which is really good. And then one of the things we've learned as well is that it's great having ideas and it's great having hackathons and it's great seeing the stuff that comes out. But if you don't take it any further, then kind of people lose their enthusiasm. So what Live Nation, our parent company, has done this year is set up like an innovation program which will then incubate the best ideas. So, really make those things come alive. And kind of, again, reiterating the same point, what we've done is we've involved people like across the business, so plugged in, stakeholders to, specific teams when they're working on like a particular idea. And we've kind of done that we've picked teams so that people aren't just working in their day-to-day, but we've got like 7 development offices across Europe and Canada, and we were kind of connecting people up based on the kind of preferences around technology and what parts of the business they wanted to work in. And we've had some like really kind of good positive buzz, some really good events. I think if you're not doing hackathons, it's worth just doing them just to, get them off the ground and get people, having fun with and playing with the tech.
And that's almost it from us. I just wanted to leave you this idea of celebrating everything. It's nice that a few of you nodded. That's reassuring. It means you guys kind of get it. If you're doing innovation, if you're doing stuff rapidly, you you are going to fail. Dan North's book, he sort of says, actually, do you know, a third of your stuff is going to fail. A third of your stuff will deliver slightly less than you thought, but kind of about the middle, and a third of your stuff is going to be awesome. And if you punish everyone every time they don't quite meet that bar, you're only celebrating a third of the time, and they're not going to take any risks, and you're going to end up with something really, really mediocre. So this idea of celebrating everything, I just wanted to leave you with something that the guys in our Quebec office did, because they were building a new product. It didn't go very well. It went very, very badly, in fact. And they retroed the life out of what they'd done and what they learned from it. And then they decided the best way to convey that, being a kind of rock and roll company that we are, was to create their own music video of it. So I'm just going to leave you with a few seconds of their efforts. And say thank you very much.